I think I'm buzzed. It is 9:18 a.m.
Thank you so much for being here. You're part of the Vardon podcast. Part of the reason we're doing the Vardon podcast is because with the brand that we're building, as we're drifting from tradition, the way that we're helping people to know about us is not necessarily saying, hey, we're this and we're that, but we're identifying people that are our people that are drifting from tradition in their personal lives and their professional lives and all the things they're doing, not just to do things different, but because they think things could be done a better way, and they're not afraid to do that. And so thank you so much for being here, Matt.
Thanks for having me. Honored to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm Jordan Abner. I'm the secretary. I kind of help everybody with everything they need here at Vardon.
An excellent secretary you are.
Yes, a very good secretary. And I'm Jordan Wayman, and I run the sales ship, and so I am the captain of sales here at Vardon.
Captain?
Yes.
All right.
Got our invoice in today.
Congratulations,
our big one.
I'm Carson, and I'm Rover. I do everything.
Yeah?
That's me.
Yep.
So like everything?
Everything.
I'm glad to know that.
Yep.
I have some things.
Okay. Great.
Is this time for me to introduce myself?
Time for you to introduce yourself.
I'm Matt Frisbie, and I'm from Southern California originally. Grew up there, loved it. Thought I'd never, ever leave this great state of California. Happy to be out. Fell in love with Utah. Raised my family out here, and it's been a blast. I went to school out there, worked out there, started a business out here, and been kind of doing things. So I'm really grateful to be here. I love Vardon, love the brand.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I met Matt several years ago. Man, it feels like it was longer ago than it actually was.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
A lot of miles in between.
A lot of miles in between. Since I've got to know Matt, and what's interesting is I've met a lot of other people that know Matt when he's not in the room, and everyone says the same thing about him. They just have so much good to say. And he does things a little bit differently, and one of the things that he does that is a common thread throughout every single experience I've had of people that know Matt is they have a personal relationship with him. They're not just like, oh yeah, I kind of know him and whatever. They have specific stories that they'll tell me portions of. And I think that's something that you do, Matt, really well, is you connect deeply with people.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
I love to talk.
Yeah, well, and you're good at it.
Oh, thanks.
A little bit of Matt's background so that he doesn't have to toot his own horn, but he was previous CMO at Little Giant Ladders, and maybe we'll let you toot your own horn a little bit. What was the revenue when you started there and the revenue when you left?
So Little Giant was right about to make its second big step in the world. They were a local brand in Utah in the 70s, had a great run for a bit as a small local shop, and then had a big jump after that recession and did an infomercial, grew a ton, and then shrunk again. They got down to about 40 million, and I came back right as they were rising, and they started getting retail contracts with big box, and they needed a chief marketing officer to officiate and substantiate their marketing. So about 120 million when I came in, and we left at about 180, almost 200. And then the market did its thing again. But we had a successful sale in the private equity and accomplished all the goals of the brand. And it was a great experience. You think of like the most boring products you could sell, and ladders is probably up there. When I got in, I was like, how do you make ladders sexy? And we had a good laugh about it, but we had fun. I learned a ton and gained a lot of respect for the trades. So we spent a lot of time with our core group, the trade professionals, and just so much respect for that industry. And you could see their need, and be able to service that through ladders even. So it was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, and we'll dig into that a little bit more. I had the opportunity to go to the factory with you a couple times.
Yeah.
Got the factory tour and did all that. So we'll get into that a little bit more.
Great.
But a little bit more on Matt's background. Prior to that, he had his own agency, Art and War.
Mm-hmm.
And Little Giant was actually one of the clients there.
Yeah.
He did a bunch of other things. He stepped in as kind of a CMO type role for Blendtec and for several other companies. Prior to that, you were at Disney.
Yeah.
Actually formerly trained as an artist, and you were looking to do that your whole life. We'll get into all of kind of your whole career, how it kind of evolved and changed, and it's been a really cool path. It's been great to know you for the past little bit, and I'm excited for everyone else to get to know you a little bit better.
Thanks. Right back at you, man.
Absolutely.
It's the glorious white beards that we have.
That's right.
Mine's more white than yours.
Well, I haven't.
We're too young to have white beards, bro.
I put this in just to make me look more distinctive.
Oh, you did a good job.
Yeah.
I can see the paint now.
Yeah. If only that was the case. I also plucked the hair out of my.
Oh, yeah, I get it. I feel balanced.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we're going to kind of talk about everything from personal life to professional life and kind of start early on. I know that you kind of needed to grow up pretty quick at a young age. Do you want to kind of talk us through a little bit of that as a teenager, kind of having to also be an adult?
Yeah. I had a pretty normal childhood. Played sports, went to school, had great friends. I grew up in this little cul-de-sac that was the Sandlot, like barbecues and 4th of July and fireworks and the kid who played too much baseball and became successful or whatever. But I became a dad at 17, and that was a real rough patch, making that decision and thinking that you had failed and your parents being, embarrassed of the situation, trying to make the most of it. But knowing that you were going to be a dad, it just changed every decision I made at that point, and there was no more messing around. Every minute mattered. And when I went to school, I paid for college. I didn't miss a class, and I didn't skip a step. And I certainly made a million mistakes, but it just changed that responsibility. Like, I'm responsible for this beautiful little thing. And my daughter, Michaela, became the motivation for everything I did. And after I became a dad, it wasn't shortly thereafter I got hired at Disney, and actually brought me a great sense of comfort. Like, oh my gosh, I work for this great company. It's going to be all right, And I had always dreamed of being a Disney artist as a young man. And so when I got hired, it was kind of a weird situation how I got hired. I was in the Disney College program. It was like this thing they did with local schools. And it was a super fun thing. They'd take you on Thursdays, and the graduation was after 9 weeks. And then you did a graduation ceremony at the resort, and followed some friends to this audition, and I had no idea what was going on. I was just kind of hanging out with some friends, and I showed up at this audition, and I was like, what are we doing here? And like, oh, we're auditioning, for the entertainment department. I'm like, what does that mean? And after a couple hours of being in this dance hall with them, I ended up getting cast. It was 15 available positions and 300 people auditioning. And my friends did not get cast, and I've never done choreography in my life. And so there I was on the high school basketball team, and I just got cast in a Disney show. So I'm back to my coach, and I was like, hey, and he's like, I super don't care. So I had to wait a second before I could start. We were mid-season, and so I ended up having a great job at Disney, but, knowing that I had to work full-time and go to school full-time, I was super pumped that if I did work somewhere, it was at Disney. And so I had great training there, got to perform in some amazing shows, met incredible people. What an incredible company. I mean, talk about a brand, that lives what it says. And it was just so interesting. You work at these weird jobs as a kid as an employee, but they refer to their employees as cast members and their customers as guests. And it started this different thinking about how you should run a business. And their benefits book was the size of the scriptures, and I was like, this is awesome. Discounts everywhere. And it was a great place to work while I was going to school, because when I was an entertainer, half the day was break so that you could be rested for the next show. Well, I could get my homework done at work, so when I went home, I was home. And you have so much, available time for your kids. And because I was so young with a dad, my daughter became the mascot for my group of buddies. And it really helped. It really helped me to feel I was welcomed and accepted in a difficult situation. And so, yeah, it was a little bit different. It was not traditional.
Yeah, for sure. Where did you go to school when you were doing all that?
So I went to Cypress Junior College in Cypress, California, and then I finished my undergrad at Cal State Fullerton.
Okay, nice. Yeah, believe it or not, I've been on that campus.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Great campus. Love it.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's awesome. So how long were you at Disney? What did that look like? Why did you leave Disney? You hear everything about Disney, and it sounds like what you're saying confirms it. They really do have a very specific voice.
Yeah.
And they eat, sleep, breathe it, they live it.
Yeah, and I was all in. I loved everything about Walt and was a huge Disney fan, living so close. I was there from 1999 to 2006, and I had graduated college while there, and then I had gotten an opportunity to apply to the Disney Art Department, which supported Disney shows in the parks, Disney movie premieres with Disney Imagineering and things like that. So Imagineering would send us stuff. Disney show producers would send us stuff. And it was a fabrication shop that was off property called Olive. And it was so fun. Like, one day you're aging swords for the Pirates of the Caribbean. The next day you're painting a backdrop for a Cinderella photo shoot or whatever, right? But there you were, a Disney artist, and you'd follow the instructions. And I was like a junior artist, and the guys that were there were unbelievable. Some of the most talented artists I've ever came in contact with, and I learned a ton just being shoulder to shoulder. So I would sometimes go and install everything. I would do the art on it. I worked in the sign shop. We did some carpentry light support. The prop shop had all the coolest things you could imagine. But I did that for almost 4 years. So 3 years as a performer and 4 years as a Disney artist. And I thought I died and gone to heaven. I was like, cool, I'm finished, right? This is what I went to school for. And it was neat to be doing the job you were going to school for while you were going to school so you could speak from real experience. But it was a great company. I ended up leaving because I had a opportunity to work in Hollywood. A friend had a script that we went and pitched, and somehow someone said yes, and that turned into about 4 years of time in Hollywood that turned into nothing. But it was a lot of fun being in that world and being out pitching and selling scripts.
Yeah. I feel like we just kind of skipped over Disney just a little bit. Like, what's a crazy story? What's something that happened there that most people don't even know about, or something that you did that was different?
Yeah, different was every day. Especially in the art department, because there's no operation, right? You're responding to things that are going on that come in as special requests. So we were part of special events, part of shows, and so we got something different every day. Like one day you're dressing for King Louis's throne, and you're getting that out and re-aging it. The funnest one that I did was the Pirates of the Caribbean movie premiere. It was the longest red carpet in the history of Hollywood. And when we got the, instructions to do that, it activated the whole shop, and so there was all these artisans doing all these things. And it was just so rad to see these, half pirate ships that were sculpting out of foam that got covered in fiberglass and painted, and all the processes that went into it. And we had to age a lot of wine barrels. And when you open up a wine barrel and dive inside and work inside of it, you come out and you're like, I think I'm buzzed. It is 9:18 a.m. And it was just fun. It was super unique. And then when we installed that show, the premiere, if you watch the Pirates of the Caribbean film, the first one on DVD on the features, you can see the movie premiere and a whole bunch of people running around. I'm one of those dots running around and installing that red carpet premiere. And so most Disney employees won't install a movie premiere. And so that was a ton of fun. Really enjoyed, because that was stuff like that constantly.
With you working there and doing stuff like that, do you get to meet a lot of the actors like Johnny Depp or any of that, or
Nope.
you just set it all up and then they do their?
Yeah, so the press team brings the celebrities. We got to see them from a distance, but by the time the celebrities show up, we were all so dang tired. I just wanted to sleep. We'd been up for 3 days straight. Yeah. I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I bet you did a great job in the movie, pal. And so they're there for the paparazzi. They're there for the press. And, that's not our function. Our function is to
set it up.
Yep, make the show happen. So
That's cool. There's a whole nother 4 years of Hollywood. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, that was kind of crazy. Tell us kind of the concept. I know I've heard just a little bit about kind of what you've done there.
Yeah.
But what movie it turned into, and
Yeah.
that you could have been The Rock. And
oh, obviously. I mean, especially with his physique. Dwayne Johnson, I gave him that opportunity, and I'm happy for him. But seriously, so lifelong dream to work in Hollywood. Could not believe that an opportunity presented itself where it could. So Cal State Fullerton sent me to Comic-Con to represent the school to attract artists. And I went to Comic-Con San Diego with a booth. And during the exhibitor time, I was able to walk around and talk to people. My buddy had given me a script to help storyboard, just a script he wrote. It was a short film, and it was actually pretty terrible script, but we were just playing around. And I went to this forum for independent films that Dark Horse Comics was putting on, Dark Horse Entertainment. So we watched, and they had some independent films, and I was like, these seem kind of low budget. This feels like our film, And so after the forum was over, Mike Richardson, the CEO, was talking to people, giving advice, and it was wonderful. And so I walked up and I was like, how does someone like me pitch to someone like you? And he's like, well, how's next Tuesday? And I was like,
No.
Oh, okay. And so legit, I called in sick to Disney. Don't tell my mom. But we went and pitched, and then we were so nervous, and they gave us some great advice and invited us back and went through the development cycle, and they said, you're probably looking at like $1 million, $1.5 million for a budget for something like this. And Chris Tung was the kind of vice president of the company, and he gave us a lot of great advice. And so we were in over our heads, huge in over our heads. And so they were helping us take it and package it. And so we had a lot to learn. It wasn't great, but we went through the change of hands here and change of hands there. And so when you're out pitching, you're like a salesperson. You just take a script, and that's your product, and you go and pitch your product, right? And then to these different shops who can we distribute this? Can we distribute this? And so that project was called The Gun Show. And so Marcus Castillo wrote it, and there kept being better versions of it. We eventually ended up at Rosen Obst Production. So it was Linda Obst and Mark Rosen that had that. So Linda Obst did like Adventures in Babysitting, Contact. So I worked with Matthew McConaughey and all that. And so Linda liked our concept, but Mark Rosen kind of took over. And so we took it from Dark Horse Entertainment, started working with Mark. And that's when we really started having meaningful meetings. We met with Spyglass Entertainment and all the others. Georgeville Entertainment eventually came from that. And so we got to the point in about 2006 where that script had really kind of come to fruition. And we ended up pitching it at Overbrook Media, and they said yes. And so yes to developing it. And so they paid us some producer fees. And getting a film to the point of like what you wrote to what gets shot to what gets distributed are night and day. And so I actually had the opportunity with Mark Rosen to very slightly work on the Interstellar script. And so Jonah Nolan had brought that film to Linda, and so when you get in Hollywood, you end up meeting a lot of people that work on everything. It's a small town, and it's hard. It's really hard. They're an incredibly talented people doing incredible work. And we met amazing people throughout that process. But after 4 years, we got to the point where the writer's strike was right in the middle of that 4 years. And it was just we didn't have enough clout. We didn't have enough energy to keep going. And so it really stifled it. So after our film got greenlit, our writers had to go picket for ever. And we weren't able to move forward, and it really killed our deal. And so they call that development hell. So I kind of gloss over Hollywood because it was development hell. A lot of great scripts, a lot of great things. I ended up writing a script that got into some legal trouble because it was stolen from me. And that happens all the time. They call it the town of broken dreams, because there's so much emotion when you write a script. There's so much emotional investment, and to have it taken from you is heartbreaking. But if you just pull back and realize it's just product, right? If you're selling a hat, if you're selling a ladder, you're selling a blender, it's just product. And you got to find the right home for it. And so I learned incredible sales lessons. I learned incredible product lessons, storytelling, all the things I talked about, the thick skin. And so I'm super grateful that I did what I came to do. It didn't end the way I thought, but that's probably like most ventures. But I grew a ton, and I learned in that moment that I could do anything I wanted. I learned that nothing was impossible, that if I can come to this town and sell things, whether anyone watches it or not, I can do anything. And so we sold a film. We had a $15 million budget for it. It fell apart in development hell, but we did that. And so it was super hard. And everyone that was around you was like, dude, what are you doing? It'll never happen. Why are you trying? It's not possible. And when they signed the deal, we all went out to dinner that night, and it felt like Ocean's 11. Like we had robbed the casino. You know what I mean? Really grateful for my friend Marcus Castillo, Matt Worley, Josh Reeson, Ron Pertula, Brian Taylor, Kenny, and these guys. Everyone put so much work into making that happen. And that night that we had dinner, we had our spouses with us, and we felt like we had won everything, like we were invincible. And no one can take that moment away from us. It happened. But then the truth, it's product. All right. And so it felt wonderful to make that happen and to know that I could do it again. Right. And it doesn't have to be in Hollywood. It could be lots of things. And so it gave me motivation and confidence that I could do anything I set my mind to. Because if all it takes is hard work, then I'm in.
Yeah.
Right. I can work hard.
Yeah,
so it was good.
So that's a ton to have that, and then to decide to leave Hollywood? How did you make that decision? How did you say, this is what I'm going to do next? Like, talk to us a little bit about that. That's a ton, right?
Yeah. The truth is that time cost us a lot of money and a lot of my time that I was not creating wealth for my family, providing for my family. And so I had a full-time job. I was working to keep the lights on. It just wasn't enough. And so we ran out of time and resources, and I had had enough. I had hurt enough, and I was ready for us to do something different. We lived in California at the time, and all of our family had moved to Utah at that time. My wife's father was sick. There was just a lot of things that were needing us to be somewhere else. I thought, you know what, like, let's go. So we prayed about it. We got on our knees and like, where should we go? And the thought was to move to Utah. And I thought, what the crap are we going to do in Utah? No, people don't work in Utah, you know. And they just have this restaurant called the Purple Turtle, and it's disgusting. So we can't live there, right?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't want to know. Excellent shakes, by the way. So I had been to Utah a ton as a kid. I just didn't understand the business climate, and I couldn't have been more wrong. And so our family needed a change. So we moved to Utah, and I was wrapping up film projects that we were working on and just kind of getting things where they needed to be. And when I got to Utah, I was blown away at the business environment. I was blown away at the entrepreneurial spirit that was in Utah and how much there is to do out here. There's so much outdoor activity for us. I hiked Timpanogos that summer, and I got to the top of that mountain. I was like, whoa, there's so much to do here. And immediately we were lost in outdoor, right? The adventures that could be doing out that way. And I was introduced to my second business partner, Ryan Sharp, who wanted to start a marketing agency. And I was like, bro, I can't even spell SEO. Like, what do you want me to do? And he says, well, I want you to come help sell. He's like, I'm afraid to talk to people. And I'm like, oh, I'm not. He's like, I know. And I'm like, oh, I see. And I kind of embraced this part of me that was good at selling. And I really fell in love with entrepreneurs. I fell in love with small business owners that had these absolutely bananas dreams, and they were going to do it. And many of them were doing it. And I fell in love with what marketing was, because that's when I learned that marketing is just storytelling with an operation behind it. It was like this film that could repeat itself, and I fell in love with small business and being able to tell brand stories. And so it took me a minute to figure out the connection between marketing and storytelling, but I found my jam. I loved it. I loved entrepreneurship. I loved business networking. And we started building a marketing agency at that point. And we went from nothing, 2 people in his basement, and we got to the point, we had about 15 employees, and we were doing big brand work, and we had a bunch of specialty. We kept a small crew on purpose because we wanted deep expertise, but it was a ton of fun. So that agency was Art and War.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen kind of behind the curtain a little bit with some of that as we've had deeper discussions on some of the strategy and those types of things. I wish we had enough time to get into all that.
Sure.
But, man, like you said, I love that you mentioned that it has an operation behind it. A lot of people think that it's just storytelling and it's just all the fun stuff. And not that the operation isn't fun, but the operation is the stuff that most people don't see.
Right.
But when that's dialed, that's when things can really accelerate. So, anyways, I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it really is. It's hard work.
It's hard work.
And then, so after Art and War, what was after that? Where'd you move on to next after, or is that still going?
Yeah, we kind of blazed through 10 years. I don't know how much time you want to get into that, but Art and War was kind of the third version of that same entity, the same EIN. There was a brand change. There was an acquisition in there. And so I had partnered with 2 guys, Derek Kopp and Jed Ivey, who were incredible creatives. So we did fractional CMO work where we acted as a chief marketing officer with other brands. And so like Jane.com and others. I took on a CMO role at Blendtec as an agency owner. And I liked that a lot because I could play a strategy role for a brand, but be peers, owner to owner. And that's a very different thing for most CMOs. Most CMOs have to report to a CEO. But as a business owner, there was a different respect to each other. And so I brought the agency talent to Blendtec, and that went really well. Still owned the agency. That came up again when we were working with Little Giant Ladders that we were doing strategy work for, and they said, hey, we want you to work full-time. Well, anyone that works in marketing, if you own the business, you get that offer from all of your clients. It's a great compliment. right? They're like, hey, we really like you. Can you be here full time? And you want to because you're like, oh, this is awesome, right? And you're working together and you're solving problems together. But Little Giant sat us down and he explained the opportunity to me, and I really fell in love with the CEO, Ryan Moss. True visionary. He really reorganized the company with Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, and just had a great vision. I really agreed with his vision. I shared his vision. Got to meet Art Wing and the Wing family that had built Little Giant, and I thought, man, this will be really hard to sell ladders, right? To market ladders. And as an industry I didn't know anything about, so I agreed to leave my agency. And at the time, all of my senior people were getting offers, as well as my partner. We thought, man, this is kind of a serendipitous moment that everyone's going to get a personal upgrade, but it will have to close a business. And the thing with marketing agencies is you can spin them up and close them at any moment, right? There's not like a contract or like something that's on the line necessarily. You're selling time. I thought, if I want to do this again, I can, and I'm good at it, and it wouldn't be difficult to do that. It would just take some organizing. So I haven't ever gone in-house like this before, so let's try it. And I loved what Ryan said. He during the interview process, he said, do you think that you can do this? And I said, of course I can. He's like, I dare you to. I'm like, okay. Okay. Right. And I loved that challenge. And if you want to get me to do anything, like tell me I can't do it. Right. And then it's just like blood washes over my eyes and I, do things I shouldn't. Right. But the challenge to get them, Little Giant was kind of the number 3, number 4 player in the market. And their ambition was to be the best brand, but like the still kind of number 2 size. And I thought that's an interesting challenge. How do we get there? And so incredible team at Little Giant of engineers and sales folks and operators and purchasers. And so we built an incredible team and grew the company a lot. And it was a really wonderful experience to be an executive in an organization that size, sell it into private equity. We had help with a group that came in, did some consulting with us to make that transaction possible. But it was really neat to watch the founder and the CEO spend their entire life in one business and observe them getting that moment, right? It was 35, 40 years in the making for these guys. And I'd only been there for a year and a half, 2 years. And so I was really honored to be there for that experience. And it was wonderful. It was such a steep learning curve. And it was a ton of work to get ready for investors to come in and how the transaction worked. So it was an incredible amount of education, but I'm really proud of those guys that they had the discipline and patience for that long a period of time to be able to experience that event. And now they're doing lots of great things still. They're working with that private equity group to do some other strategic initiatives. And so we came in to accomplish the goal. We did. It was exciting to start and finish something that hard. And it's so fun to go into these retail boxes and see that we've taken market share, that we have replaced our competitors. And that's a everyone effort, right? It was everyone following a vision and seeing it all the way through. And it was just a couple weeks ago, I remember the meetings that would we'd never have that. That's impossible to get that there. It's there, and it was years in the making. And, it's just like I said, nothing's impossible. You just have to never give up.
Yeah.
How did you approach going in to a legacy organization and learn, but also bring your talents to it? So you can say, hey, this is what we're going to do, bringing it from where it's at to where it's going to go.
Yeah. That's a great question. Especially a family-owned business. There's an established culture. The average tenure of the employees there was 22 years. And that blew my head right off my shoulders, especially in this market where the average tenure is 2 to 3 years.
Right.
And so there was really a legacy that was there. The Wing family had created that legacy. Ryan had been the CEO, I think, since 2012, right when the economy was kind of coming into its thing, and it just kind of fell apart in Utah. And he was given a difficult situation, and so they had all been through hell together. And so to come into a place where that level of trust existed and you're the new person, because I was the first of several new executives that came in that was kind of migrating from a family-owned, family-managed to a family-owned, professionally managed, eventually to a professionally-owned, professionally managed. It was hard, but Ryan's a great teacher. Art was a great mentor. And my peers taught us a lot. And, I became very aware of how difficult it is, no matter the size of company you have. I think of the sleepless nights I had as a business owner, like, are we going to make payroll? It's the same thing at that size. Like, oh my gosh, is that invoice going to show up, right? Are they going to pay that bill? And you had to learn by doing it, by getting in and listening. One of the big things at Little Giant was listening. Ryan said, the largest room in this building is the room for improvement. And I loved that. I loved that he felt that way because we all acted that way. And so it took a minute to do it differently. And to be an owner and then go be an employee, my dad taught me something I'll never, ever forget. And this is probably the major reason I went and did it. As he said, the best leaders are excellent followers. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go prove this out. And I'm super grateful for my father's advice because I wanted to be an excellent follower. And so I would meet with Ryan and I was like, am I executing your vision? Like every week, am I executing your vision? And after about a year and a half, my ego crept back in for sure, right? I definitely wanted things my way. Yep. And we had to talk about it. And he was a great mentor that way. So it's important that you trust the vision of the leader.
Yeah, I love that.
That's cool. It's making me think of sales strategies in almost becoming the customer to get them to want what we have to offer. So that's cool. I like that. One question I have for you is, I know you're an avid golfer, right?
Love it, yeah. Really bad at it, but love it.
Hey, that's same. I wish I was good.
Yep.
But what kind of lessons has the golf course taught you in bringing into your professional life and into business, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's funny that golf, especially, as a business owner, you get invited to golf a lot. People want to spend a large amount of time with you on a course because you can talk for 4 hours. I grew up poor. I grew up in Southern California playing sports, and I did not see golf as a sport. I judged it harshly. I hated the industry. I hated the vibe. I hated the culture. And so I openly mocked it when I went to courses. And there was that first awkward laugh, ha ha ha. And then as I kept going, they were not laughing anymore. I was like, oh, this isn't funny? All right, I better stop. I went to my first golf course with jeans, Chuck Taylors, a T-shirt. And my homie Terry was like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean, what am I doing? He's like, you can't wear that here. And I'm like, wear what here? And so we went to the pro shop, and I spent $200 on terrible shorts and a terrible polo, and I was grumpy, dude. I was super grumpy. And what made it worse was how awful I was that first year of golf. And so this is about 7 years ago. And it's so freaking hard.
Hardest game in the world.
Oh, my gosh. I can pick up most sports pretty quickly, right? You get some basic things, the fundamentals, and you can dig into it, right? Knowing you're limited, right? You can't shift from baseball to basketball that fast, but the foundation is there. You're like, ball goes in hoop, ball goes in field, right? But the very minute things that make a huge difference in golf made me mad. I had to learn it, and I was terrible for about 4 years, and I was a part of a business networking group that would take us to Pebble Beach, to Bandon Dunes. Logan Wilkes and Jeff Russ created a group called Corporate Alliance. And when you go to these places and you're spending a lot of money to travel to nice golf resorts, sucking does not help you. And when you're golfing with folks who have prepared their whole lives to go play at Pebble, it's their bucket list, and you're like, I don't even know what this place is, It was a little bit embarrassing for me to be as terrible as I was. And so I was really drawn to the level of mental discipline these guys had to be able to be as good as golf they were, and that captured my attention. And so golf takes an enormous amount of discipline to be level-headed and calm for 4 hours, and a course that changes everywhere you play, holes that are ridiculous to get to. And I think Robin Williams said it best, he used this little stick to hit this little ball 537 yards away to get into this little cup. And so the discipline, the mechanics it takes to be good at golf really mirror how hard it is to be good at business. It takes so much discipline. It takes so much determination. And so I really fell in love with it because I felt like, man, there's a lot of elements of this game that mirror what it takes to be successful in anything. And I have never been that disciplined. And so the last 3 years I've been super committed to getting better, and my handicap's down to 13. Hopefully it stays. That's, super weekend warrior golf, but it was hard to get there, man. Like, I'm super proud of that number. And I think we all want to be a scratch golfer, but that takes like 5 days a week, and my kids are not having that.
Cool.
Good question.
Thank you.
I guess you've been all over. Like, you worked in Disney, you've worked, with marketing in an agency and working with different companies and growing them and doing marketing. Do you have one? And I know you just told us your cool story with Paramount and being able to pitch them, and they accepted it, and it fell apart quickly. But is there any other like products or companies that was some of the most fun that you had, or one of the funnest projects that you've worked on?
Yeah, there was a project there's two that stick out. There was a project we did with Blendtec, and it was the Gatorade fuel stations. And so I had the opportunity to garner a sponsorship with Tobias Harris, who's on the 76ers now, and he was the Clippers at the time. And got to meet his dad / agent, and we were doing this big effort around sport. We were launching the Blendtec, the Fuel Cup, where you're able to fill a cup kind of like a NutriBullet, but like much, much better, and flip it over, and it's ready to go, and it has a lid that pops on, and you can go work out, right? And so worked with the engineering team on the product that they had gotten ready, and we were getting ready for a launch. And so we worked with Gatorade, got to fly out and meet with the team at Gatorade. They were actually installing a fuel station at the University of Utah, right? They do these all over the country for the Rams, for NBA, NFL, MLB. It just happened that their next one was in Utah, So coordinating with the Gatorade team, we got to go to the University of Utah, and this fuel station was incredible. It was so freaking fun to meet with nutritionists and the representatives at Utah, all the the coaches that were there. And so we were installing what we called the Blendtec Stealth, this series of blenders that they were going to be using, and we brought like 50 cups that the players would cycle through, and probably 100 jars, and we were looking at all this fueling, and the weight room was amazing, and it was just cool to be a part of sport. The next one we were doing was the LA Rams. I was able to be there for the LA Clippers, so we got to go to the Clippers facility and be a part of that, and we got to do a photo shoot with Tobias, and it was just a blast. I was like, where am I? What am I doing? And as a kid, I thought I'd be in the NBA, but then I got to 6'2" and stopped. So that future didn't happen. But it was a cool moment to be able to take some photos there with Tobias and send it to my dad. And I'm like, I didn't play in the NBA, Dad, but I made more of my free throws than Tobias did today. So that means something, right?
That's really cool.
And then his dad and we were all there for the shoot. His dad was teasing me, or teasing Tobias that I had made more. And
yeah,
it was so fun. It was a super highlight of my career to be able just to have a fun. So Tobias and I kind of became friends through that. And he's such a polite guy. The Harris family is a real wonderful family. They're just such incredible people.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really fun. So,
with all these things that you've been able to accomplish, what are you wanting to do over the next 10 years, 20 years?
Yeah, great question. Having owned a business, learning a lot, having worked in the business, learning a lot, I want to launch brands. I want to help employees reach their full potential. And so I love what Vardon is doing, drifting from tradition and seeing brands like this come to life. I want to be a part of brands coming to life, launching my own brands, continue to help people. So I'm consulting again, and I love solving problems, and I realize I just love it, and I'm going to stay in that space. I'm working on a technology as well. It's an apprentice technology that helps organizations to think about skills. And so y'all have seen Moneyball.
Yeah.
When you get into any business, how you get there is your people. And I think of what makes your top performer, and I think there's an imperfect understanding of perfection. And I really want to break open skills and help people see their capabilities and maximize skill development through apprenticeships in professional environments, not just the trades or the medical field. And so I'm hoping that this technology will help a lot of companies that I own, and that we're able to develop each other and use a better understanding of how we all got here. I think that the last 100 years we've gotten so used to computers or cheap labor, and we've really devalued the human experience. I think of when a layoff happens, companies value the salary of the individual more than their mind. And that really doesn't sit well with me. And a business has a responsibility to its community and its people that it lives with, that it can't just fluctuate labor like that, right? But the world we live in, like, that's common. We expect that there's like a little bit of trouble, everybody's gone. And it creates so much disruption in an economy, in a marketplace, and in people's homes. We don't think of the impact that has. So I want to get this technology built that gets people learning from each other, and I want to launch ongoing businesses with that technology as the backbone of the operation.
That's really cool. And with that too, my last question that I have for you is there like a Matt Frisbie content of sales, or a Matt Frisbie book, or like what do you use for like content to keep learning and keep selling and keep learning? Because you went to school, but now like continually, is there books that you read, or do you have your own literature that you use?
I have been recommended so many great books over the years. Audible's been the way I've digested that. I love books on habits. I love books on Start With Why. Simon Sinek is one of my favorite authors. There's so many great authors out there. Ryan Holiday, Courage is Calling, Obstacle is the Way, Discipline is Destiny. I got to meet Ryan Holiday at an event. Incredible guy. Total introvert, but did a great job speaking on stage. And that really meant a lot to me, actually, to see how he got through his introvertedness and presented still. And so I had a photo with Ryan. I started writing a book, and I finished chapter 1, and I'm like, damn, this is hard. This is really hard. So I've outlined a book, and I stopped writing it because it's not done. There's a lot of the theories in the book that I want to prove before I write about them. And so I don't have an ego in it. I hope that if I offer a book out there that it has proof to my theories, not just theories for the sake of theories. Even though the theories are sound and I can see them used in other places, I want to prove that they're true. And so I'm in the middle of doing that right now with some of the businesses I've launched. I would say that most of it came true in some of the experiences I mentioned before. But that book is called Art and War, Transforming Businesses into Brands. So I hope to finish that here soon, but I want to prove a couple more theories that I have in there before I write it. But my current favorite book of all time is a book called The Master Key System. And it's deep, it's out there a little bit, but what I like about it is it takes self-mastery to a whole new level. It's not a linear read, it's an action book. But like the first chapter is about stillness. The second chapter is about like control of the thoughts. The third chapter is controlling your mind, or controlling your emotions. And the fourth chapter is about being situationally aware. And it gives you these exercises to repeat. You can't go to the next chapter until you have completed it. So I am on month 4 of chapter 17. So I have listened to chapter 17 for the last 4 months, and it is real good. 28 chapters in the book, but it is like the Rockefellers used it. Most of the giants of the 20th century used the Master Key System. So Charles F. Honnell was the author of it. And the book, The Secret, took chapter 4 and wrote a whole book on chapter 4 and left the rest of it out. So it is about self-mastery and being a master of everything about you in a heightened way. So that's my current favorite book.
Okay, cool, sweet. Well, hey, thanks for sharing. That's all the questions I have. Do you guys have any?
I'm out of questions. I sitting there and just listening to you, and my mind is just turning. And
that means I bored you.
No.
Well, we could talk all day, and we typically do talk all day.
We do, don't we?
I do have one last question for the podcast.
Yeah.
Where we are looking for people like you that are doing things differently, and clearly from your track record, you're doing things in a way that you feel is best to take on a challenge, not the easy way, but because it's what you feel is right. Who are a couple other people that you feel we should have on here as guests that are doing the same thing? People that come to mind that you're like, they're drifting from tradition in the right way.
Oh, sure. Oh, man, that list could be forever long. A couple people that I feel like were huge motivations to me that maybe I don't always agree with, but really great innovators is Jason Bangerter. He worked with an agency and built a couple platforms that have been used really well in the local market. he had Nuvi, which was a social media visualization platform, and is the CEO of Rentler. Jason did things very differently, did not bend on where he was headed. His vision was clear. He is outspoken about the fact that he's a futurist, right? And sees things very differently. Another one I would have you invite is Logan Wilkes, who started Truss. He was able to make a huge sacrifice and pivot that was a gigantic risk into his business. And he has connected so many of Utah's business owners and done it in such a unique way. I've learned a lot from Logan. He's become a very dear friend of mine. And what a disciplined guy. And I wouldn't say that it's the size of Truss or anything that's unique, but just the impact that his business has had on this state is enormous. And I think that his impact will be here for years to come. I want to just drop like 100 names. And, honestly, probably in closing, I would say Ryan Moss from Little Giant, instrumental in my development and the grand amount of respect I have. That dude puts a book a week away and just is so inviting to continue to learn. And I've learned so much from him. So those three names probably I'd leave you with is Jason Mangater, Logan Wilkes, and Ryan Moss.
Awesome. Let's kind of cut it there. I'm sure there's a bunch more you would like to mention.
Oh, yes.
But then there'd be a ton that you wouldn't be able to get to as well. So, anyways, we'd love to get to know them. I don't know any one of those three guys.
I would be happy to introduce you.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome. Well, hey, thanks again, Matt, for coming. We really appreciate it, and hopefully everyone can learn something from all this. And yeah,
appreciate it, Jordan. This is
Jordan squared.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sweet.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming.
Matt Frisbie, thank you so much for being on.
Yep. Thanks, guys.